The year was 2347, and humanity had kept its greatest secret for 50 years. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth was just another minor planet filled with primitive beings who had barely figured out how to travel between stars. The Galactic Council had given humans a seat at the table, but it was more of a courtesy than a sign of respect. After all, what could a species from a small blue planet possibly offer to civilizations that had conquered the stars thousands of years ago? Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the observation window of Station Omega 9, a hidden monitoring post tucked behind one of Jupiter's moons. From here, his team watched everything. Every signal, every ship movement, every whisper that traveled through the black void of space. The galaxy thought humans were weak, and Daniel was perfectly happy to let them believe that. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Lisa Morgan, walked up beside him with a cup of coffee. She handed it to him without a word. They had worked together for 8 years, and she knew when he was deep in thought. "Anything interesting tonight?" she asked. Daniel shook his head slowly. "The craft Dominion is moving ships toward the outer rim. Probably another raid on some poor species that cannot fight back." Lisa frowned. The Krath were known throughout the galaxy as brutal conquerors. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not take. The Galactic Council always condemned their actions, but never did anything to stop them. "Too risky," they said. "Too costly. One day, someone will have to stop them," Lisa said quietly. Daniel took a sip of his coffee. One day. What Lisa and the rest of the station crew knew, but the galaxy did not, was that Earth had been preparing for that day for half a century. It started back in 2297, when a young soldier named Kevin Brooks witnessed the Krath destroy an entire civilization. He was on a diplomatic mission to the Moran homeworld when the attack came. The Krath fleet appeared without warning and burned the planet to ash. 12 billion lives were lost in a single day. Kevin was one of only 100 survivors who escaped on a damaged transport ship. When he returned to Earth, Kevin made a promise. Never again would humanity stand by helpless while innocent people died. He rose through the ranks, became an admiral, and convinced Earth's leaders to begin a secret project. They called it the Silent Fleet. For 50 years, humanity built warships in hidden shipyards scattered throughout the asteroid belt. They studied every piece of alien technology they could find. Crash ships, abandoned stations, stolen blueprints. Human engineers did not just copy what they found. They improved it. They made it better. And they kept it all hidden from the watching eyes of the galaxy. Now, Admiral Kevin Brooks was 82 years old, but his mind was still sharp. He commanded the Silent Fleet from a bunker buried deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. 200 warships waited in the darkness of space, ready to answer his call. Ships that no alien had ever seen. Ships equipped with weapons that no one knew existed. Daniel's console suddenly lit up with an incoming signal. He set down his coffee and leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he read the data. "Commander, we are picking up a distress call," one of his officers reported. "It is coming from the Valorian system." The Valorians were a peaceful species known for their art, music, and philosophy. They had no military to speak of. They believed in harmony and cooperation. In a galaxy full of predators, they were the gentlest of prey. Daniel pulled up the signal and played it through the station speakers. A voice filled the room, broken by static and fear. "This is High Priestess Solara of Valoria. Our world is under attack. The Krath have come. They are bombing our cities. Our people are dying. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have no weapons. We cannot fight. Please, someone, anyone, help us." The message repeated over and over. Daniel felt his hands tighten into fists. Lisa was already at her station, pulling up tactical data. "The Krath have sent a fleet of 150 warships. They are in orbit around the Valorian homeworld right now. What is the Galactic Council doing? Daniel asked, though he already knew the answer. Lisa shook her head. Emergency session is happening now. Early reports say they are debating whether intervention is worth the risk. Daniel laughed bitterly. They will debate until every Valorian is dead. He turned away from the window and walked to the secure communication terminal. His fingers hovered over the keys for a moment. If he sent this message, everything would change. 50 years of secrecy would end. Earth would reveal itself to the galaxy as something more than a minor species. There would be consequences, questions, perhaps even fear. But then he thought of the voice on that distress call. The fear, the desperation, the hope that someone, somewhere, might care enough to help. He typed in his authorization code and opened a direct line to us. Admiral Brooks. The old admiral's face appeared on the screen. His hair was white now, and deep lines marked his face. But his eyes still burned with the same fire that had driven him for 50 years. I heard the distress call, Admiral Brooks said before Daniel could speak. The Council will do nothing. They never do. Sir, if we go, the galaxy will know about the fleet. Everything we have built in secret will be exposed. Admiral Brooks was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the smile of a man who had waited his entire life for this moment. Commander Hayes, I did not build this fleet so it could hide forever. I built it so that when the day came, when innocent people needed us, we would be ready. The Valorians are dying. They called for help. And Earth is going to answer. Daniel felt something shift inside him. Pride, perhaps. Or maybe it was relief. After 50 years of waiting and watching, they were finally going to act. What are your orders, Admiral? Kevin Brooks straightened in his chair. Despite his age, he looked like a warrior ready for battle. Mobilize the silent fleet, all 200 ships. Set course for the Valorian system at maximum speed. And Commander? Yes, sir? Tell our people that today we stop hiding. Today, the galaxy learns what humanity is really made of. Daniel ended the call and turned to face his crew. They were all watching him, waiting. He could see the anticipation in their eyes. You heard the Admiral. Send the word to all fleet commanders. We are moving out. Lisa smiled as she began transmitting the orders. About time. Across the solar system, in hidden bases and secret shipyards, alarms began to sound. Men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment rushed to their stations. Engines that had been silent for decades roared to life. Navigation systems locked onto a destination halfway across the galaxy. The silent fleet was waking up, and somewhere in the vastness of space, a gentle species was about to learn that they were not as alone as they thought. Help was coming. It was coming from a small blue planet that the galaxy had always underestimated. Earth was on its way. Deep in the asteroid belt, between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, something extraordinary was happening. Massive doors hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids began to slide open for the first time in decades. The darkness of space was suddenly filled with movement as ship after ship emerged from their hiding places. Captain Amy Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Sentinel, the flagship of Earth's silent fleet. She was 43 years old, and had spent the last 15 years commanding a ship that nobody knew existed. Every day, she had trained her crew. Every night, she had wondered if they would ever see real action. Now, as her ship's engines hummed with power, she finally had her answer. All systems are online and ready, Captain, her tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Commander Ben Torres was a tall man with steady hands and calm eyes. In simulations, he had never missed a target. Amy hoped he would be just as accurate when the shooting became real. Good. Take us out. Nice and slow. Form up with the rest of the fleet. The Sentinel glided forward, joining the stream of warships flowing out of the asteroid belt. Amy watched through the main view screen as more and more ships appeared. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers. 200 vessels of war, all built by human hands, all hidden from the watching galaxy. Each ship was painted black to blend with the void. Their hulls were covered in a special material that absorbed sensor signals instead of reflecting them. To any alien scanner, these ships simply did not exist. They were ghosts made of metal and fire. Down in the medical bay, Dr. Maria Santos was preparing for the worst. She had 300 beds ready and enough supplies to treat thousands of casualties. As the ship's chief medical officer, she knew that battle always brought pain. She hoped they would arrive in time to save at least some of the Valorians. "How bad do you think it will be?" asked one of her young nurses. Maria paused in her work. "The craft do not take prisoners. They do not show mercy. Whatever we find when we get there, it will not be pleasant. But that is why we are going. Because someone has to help and no one else will." Back on the bridge, Amy received a message from Admiral Brooks. His weathered face appeared on her personal screen. "Captain Carter, you will lead the Vanguard. I want the Sentinel to be the first ship the craft see when we reveal ourselves." Amy nodded. "Understood, Admiral. It will be an honor. The honor belongs to all of us. We have waited 50 years for this moment. Do not let me down. We will not, sir." The channel closed, and Amy turned to her crew. These men and women had trained together, eaten together, lived together in the belly of a secret that the world did not know. Now they were about to become the tip of Earth's spear. "Set course for the Valorian system," she ordered. "Maximum speed. We have a long way to go and not much time." As the fleet moved through space, they passed by a small trading station near the edge of the solar system. Inside, a group of alien merchants were conducting business when their sensors suddenly went crazy. "What is happening?" shouted a Torvian trader, his forearms frantically adjusting his equipment. "I do not know," his partner replied. "The gravitational readings are off the charts. Something massive just passed by, but I cannot see anything on visual." They stared at their screens in confusion. The readings showed hundreds of large objects moving at incredible speed, but when they looked out the window, they saw nothing but stars. "Must be a sensor malfunction," the Torvian finally decided. Nothing could be that big and that invisible. He was wrong. Word of the strange readings spread quickly through alien communication networks. Traders talked to merchants. Merchants talked to diplomats. Within hours, the Galactic Council had received dozens of reports about mysterious gravitational anomalies near Earth's solar system. "Probably just asteroid movements," one council member suggested. "Earth does not have any significant military capability. Their entire fleet consists of a few patrol ships." The others agreed. Earth was harmless. Everyone knew that. Meanwhile, the silent fleet raced through hyperspace toward the Valorian system. Inside every ship, crews prepared for battle. Weapons were checked and double-checked. Pilots ran through combat simulations. Soldiers loaded their gear and said quiet prayers. In the Sentinel's mess hall, a young pilot named Chris Taylor sat alone, staring at a photograph. It showed a woman and two small children, all smiling at the camera. His wife and kids, waiting for him back on Earth. They knew he served in the military, but they had no idea what he really did or where he really went. Then Torres walked up and sat across from him. "First time going into real combat?" Chris nodded. "I have done 1,000 simulations. But this is different. It is always different when it is real. The fear is normal. What matters is what you do with it." Chris looked at the older officer. "What do you do with it?" Ben smiled slightly. "I remember why we are doing this. Somewhere out there, families, just like yours, are being torn apart. Children are losing their parents. People are dying because no one will stand up for them. When I think about that, the fear does not go away, but it becomes smaller. Because I know that what we are doing matters. Chris tucked the photograph back into his pocket and stood up. Then I guess we better not let them down. That is the spirit. Hours passed. The fleet drew closer to their destination. On the bridge of the Sentinel, Amy received updated intelligence reports. The news was not good. The Krath had increased their bombardment. Major cities on the Valorian homeworld were in ruins. Casualty estimates were in the millions and climbing. How much longer until we arrive? Amy asked. 4 more hours at current speed, her navigation officer replied. Amy clenched her jaw. 4 hours. How many more would die in 4 hours? Push the engines harder. Get us there faster. Captain, if we push too hard, we risk damaging the drive systems. I will take that risk. Every minute we waste, people are dying. Push the engines. The ship shuddered as the engines increased their output. All around them, the rest of the fleet matched their speed. 200 ships hurtling through the void like a storm of steel and determination. Admiral Brooks watched the fleet's progress from his command center on Earth. He had dedicated his entire life to this moment. All the sacrifices, all the secrets, all the long years of waiting. It had all led to this dot. His aide approached with a cup of tea. Sir, you should rest. You have been awake for over 30 hours. Kevin Brooks shook his head. I will rest when this is over. Those people are counting on us. I will not sleep while they are still in danger. He looked at the display showing the fleet's position. They were almost there. 50 years, he whispered to himself. 50 years I have waited to say this to the galaxy. Today, you learn the truth about humanity. We are not weak. We are not helpless. And we do not abandon those who need us. The silent fleet flew on through the darkness, carrying with it the hopes of a planet and the fury of a species that had been underestimated for far too long. The Valorian homeworld was burning. From space, the planet looked like it was covered in orange and red wounds. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were now nothing but smoke and ash. The beautiful blue oceans were darkened by debris. And above it all, the Krath fleet circled like vultures waiting for their prey to stop breathing. High Priestess Solara stood in an underground bunker, surrounded by the few advisors who had survived the initial attacks. She was old for her kind, with silver skin that had once glowed with health but now looked pale and tired. Her large violet eyes, which her people used to express emotions more than words, were filled with a sadness that went beyond tears. How many? She asked quietly. Her chief advisor checked his tablet with trembling hands. 47 million confirmed deaths. The northern continent has been completely destroyed. The Krath are now targeting the southern cities. Solara closed her eyes. 47 million. And the number was still rising. Her people were artists, philosophers, musicians. They had never built weapons because they believed that all conflicts could be solved through understanding. Now that belief was costing them everything. Has anyone responded to our distress call? The advisor shook his head. The Galactic Council sent a message expressing their concern and promising to discuss potential responses at their next scheduled meeting. Their next meeting is in 2 weeks. Yes. High Priestess. Solara laughed, but there was no joy in it. We will all be dead in 2 days. Above the planet, Krath warlord Zorvax watched the destruction with satisfaction. He was a massive creature, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray skin and 4 powerful arms. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and the Valorians were proving to be his easiest victory yet. Pathetic, he growled, watching another city collapse under orbital bombardment. They do not even try to fight back. That is what makes them perfect targets, Warlord, his second-in-command replied. No resistance means no casualties for us. Zorvax nodded. Continue the bombardment. I want this world cleansed within 48 hours. Then we will strip it of resources and move on to the next target. As you command. Neither of them noticed the slight distortion at the edge of the star system. A ripple in space, barely visible, quickly fading to nothing. The silent fleet had arrived. Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Sentinel, his face grim as he studied the tactical display. 150 Krath warships surrounded the Valorian planet. Each one was bristling with weapons. Each one was actively engaged in the systematic destruction of a civilization. Status of the fleet? He asked. All 200 ships are in position, Captain Amy Carter reported. We have formed a sphere around the Krath fleet. They have no idea we are here. Daniel walked to the view screen and stared at the burning planet. He had seen reports of Krath atrocities before. He had read the statistics, studied the footage. But seeing it with his own eyes was different. The scale of the destruction was almost impossible to comprehend. Sir, Lieutenant Lisa Morgan called out from her station. I am intercepting communications from the surface. There is a refugee camp near the equator. Over 200,000 civilians, mostly children and elderly. The Krath are preparing to bomb it. Daniel's hands curled into fists. Children. They were going to bomb children. How long until they fire? 10 minutes, maybe less. 10 minutes. Daniel turned to face his crew. He saw his own anger reflected in their eyes. These were good people. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives to protect those who could not protect themselves. And now they were being forced to watch helplessly as innocent people faced death. What are your orders, Commander? Amy asked. Daniel took a deep breath. The original plan was to wait, to position all ships perfectly before revealing themselves. But plans change. Situations change. And he was not about to let 200,000 people die while he waited for the perfect moment. We strike now. All ships, prepare to decloak on my command. Sir, if we decloak early, we lose the element of surprise. We still have surprise. They do not know we are here. They do not know we exist. That will be enough. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Commander Hayes. The Krath are about to bomb a refugee camp filled with children. We are not going to let that happen. On my signal, drop stealth and engage. Protect the civilians at all costs. Across 200 ships, crews acknowledged the order. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Targeting computers locked onto enemy vessels. Down in the Sentinel's hangar bay, Chris Taylor climbed into his fighter. His hands were steady now. The fear was still there, but Ben Torres had been right. When he thought about those children on the surface, the fear became smaller. What he was about to do mattered. All fighters ready for launch, the hangar commander reported. Hold until we decloak, Amy ordered. Then hit them with everything we have. The seconds ticked by. On the surface of Valoria, the refugees in the camp looked up at the sky with terror. They could see the Krath ships moving into position. They knew what was coming. Mothers held their children close. Elders prayed to gods who seemed to have abandoned them. High Priestess Solara received a report about the impending attack on the refugee camp. She fell to her knees, unable to stand under the weight of so much grief. Is there truly no one who will help us? She whispered. At that exact moment, Commander Daniel Hayes spoke 2 words that would change the galaxy forever. Decloak now. In an instant, 200 human warships appeared from nothing. They materialized around the Krath fleet like ghosts becoming solid. One moment, the Krath were alone in their victory. The next, they were surrounded by vessels they had never seen before, bearing markings they did not recognize. Warlord Zorvax stared at his tactical display in shock. What is this? Where did they come from? Unknown, Warlord. We are not detecting any known signatures. These ships do not match any species in our database. The craft commander leaned forward, his forearms gripping his command chair. Open a channel. Find out who dares to interfere with the Dominion. The communication link crackled to life, and Zorvax found himself looking at a human face. A species he had dismissed as irrelevant. A species that should not have had ships like these. This is Commander Daniel Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet, the human said, his voice calm and cold. You are ordered to cease fire immediately and withdraw from the system. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. Zorvax laughed. Earth? The primitive world? You threaten me with what? 200 ships crewed by beings who have never fought a real war. Daniel did not smile. He did not blink. He simply stared at the warlord with eyes that had seen enough evil for one lifetime. You have 60 seconds to begin your withdrawal. After that, we open fire. The clock starts now. On the surface of Valoria, the refugees watched in amazement as the sky filled with new ships. Ships that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that now stood between them and death. High Priestess Solara rose slowly to her feet, her violet eyes wide with disbelief. Someone came, she breathed. Someone actually came. In the heavens above her dying world, two fleets faced each other across the void. One had come to destroy. The other had come to protect, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what it truly meant to be underestimated. The 60 seconds felt like an eternity. On the bridge of every human ship, crews waited in tense silence. Their weapons were locked. Their shields were raised. All they needed was the word. Warlord Zorvax spent those 60 seconds laughing. He laughed at the audacity of these humans. He laughed at their tiny ships and their foolish threats. He laughed because he had conquered dozens of worlds and had never once been defeated. These creatures think they can frighten the Krath Dominion? He roared to his officers. They have never tasted real war. They do not know what they face. His tactical officer hesitated. Warlord, their ships are reading as highly advanced. Perhaps we should consider what? Retreat? Zorvax slammed his fist against his chair. The Krath do not retreat. We crush. We conquer. We destroy. All ships, ignore the humans' deadline. Resume bombardment of the surface. And someone destroy these annoying newcomers. The Krath fleet began to move. Their weapons charged and turned toward the human ships. On the Sentinel, Commander Daniel Hayes watched the countdown reach 0. He had hoped, somewhere deep in his heart, that the Krath would back down, that this could end without more death. But hope was a luxury he could no longer afford. They are not withdrawing, Captain Amy Carter reported. Krath weapons are targeting our ships. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we do what we came here to do. All ships, weapons free. Protect the planet. Stop the Krath. The order went out across the fleet, and then the sky exploded. Human ships fired first. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across the void, striking Krath vessels before they could react. The aliens had expected primitive weapons, slow projectiles, easy targets. Instead, they found themselves facing technology they did not understand. The first Krath ship lost its shields in seconds. The second lost its engines. The third simply stopped transmitting as its bridge was torn apart by precision fire. Warlord. Zorvax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. How are they doing this? Warlord, their weapons are cutting through our shields like they are not there. We have lost 12 ships already. Then destroy them. All ships, concentrate fire. The Krath fleet responded with everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams crisscrossed the battlefield. The void between the two fleets became a wall of fire and light, but the human ships moved like nothing the Krath had ever seen. They did not fly in straight lines or predictable patterns. They danced through the chaos, weaving between attacks, supporting each other with perfect coordination. When one ship drew fire, another would strike from a different angle. When a ship took damage, others would cover its retreat. Chris Taylor flew his fighter through the madness, his hands steady on the controls. Enemy fire streaked past him, close enough that he could feel the heat through his cockpit. But he did not panic. He did not freeze. He remembered his training. He remembered his family. He remembered why he was here. Fox 3, this is Fox Leader. I have a Krath bomber trying to break through toward the surface. Moving to intercept. Copy, Fox Leader. We have your wing. Chris pushed his throttle forward and dove after the bomber. It was 3 times the size of his fighter, armed with weapons designed to level cities. If it reached the planet, thousands more would die. Not today, he thought. Not on my watch. He lined up his shot and fired. The bomber's engines erupted in flame. It spun wildly for a moment, then broke apart, its deadly cargo never reaching the innocent people below. Fox Leader, Splash 1 bomber. Moving to next target. Throughout the battle, the same scene repeated itself. Human pilots risking their lives to protect strangers they had never met. Human ships placing themselves between danger and the defenseless. Human crews fighting not for territory or resources, but because they believed that some things were worth fighting for. Warlord Zorvax watched his fleet crumble. In just 1 hour, he had lost over 60 ships. The humans had lost none. None. It was impossible. It defied everything he knew about war. Warlord, we must retreat, his second-in-command urged. If we stay, we will all be destroyed. The Krath do not retreat. Then the Krath will die. Look at the tactical display. Their ships are too fast, too strong. We cannot match them. Zorvax gripped his chair so hard that the metal began to bend under his fingers. His entire life, he had known only victory. He had built his reputation on the broken bodies of his enemies. And now, against a species he had dismissed as primitive, he was facing defeat. All ships, he growled, the words tasting like poison in his mouth, begin withdrawal. But it was too late for many. As the Krath tried to retreat, human ships cut off their escape routes. One by one, the enemy vessels were disabled, their weapons destroyed, their engines crippled. The humans were not trying to kill. They were trying to capture, to stop the threat without unnecessary death. This confused the Krath even more. In their culture, mercy was weakness. You destroyed your enemies completely or not at all. The fact that humans were choosing to spare lives they could easily take was beyond their understanding. Commander Hayes watched the battle wind down from the Sentinel's bridge. The Krath fleet was shattered. Over 100 of their ships were either destroyed or disabled. The rest were fleeing into hyperspace, abandoning their warlord and their mission. Sir, Lisa Morgan reported, we have captured Warlord Zorvax's flagship. His ship is disabled and surrounded. He's requesting a communication link. Put him through. The view screen flickered and Zorvax appeared. He looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his eyes, replaced by something that might have been fear. Why? The warlord demanded. Why did you come? The Valorians are nothing to you. They have no resources you need. No strategic value. Why would you risk your ships, your people, for them? Daniel stood up and walked closer to the screen. He wanted the warlord to see his face clearly, to understand that what he was about to say came from the deepest part of his soul. Because 50 years ago, a young soldier from Earth watched your people destroy an entire world. He watched 12 billion innocent beings die because no one would help them. He promised himself that if humanity ever had the power to stop something like that, we would. Today, we kept that promise. Zorvac shook his head. You reveal your hidden fleet, expose your secrets, start a conflict with the Dominion, all for people you do not even know? This makes no sense. It makes perfect sense, Daniel replied. It is called doing the right thing. I would not expect you to understand. He turned away from the screen. Take him into custody. Treat him fairly, but do not let him escape. He has crimes to answer for. Yes, Commander. As the Krath warlord was led away, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. The Silent Fleet had proven itself. Humanity had proven itself, but the battle was only half the victory. Down on the planet's surface, millions of people were still suffering. Cities were in ruins. Families were torn apart. The real work was just beginning. Captain Carter, begin landing operations. Get our medical teams, our engineers, our supplies down to the surface. These people have been through enough. Let us show them that humanity knows how to heal as well as how to fight. Amy smiled. With pleasure, Commander. As the first human shuttles descended toward the wounded world below, the Valorians looked up at the sky with tears in their eyes. Not tears of fear this time. Tears of gratitude. Tears of hope. Someone had answered their call. Someone had cared enough to fight for them, and that someone had come from a small blue planet that the galaxy had always ignored. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours of the battle's end, every species in the known universe was talking about the same thing. Earth, the Silent Fleet, the humans who had appeared from nowhere and defeated the mighty Krath. Dominion. In council chambers and trading posts, in ships and on stations, beings of every shape and size asked the same questions. How did they hide such a fleet? Why did they keep it secret? And most importantly, what does this mean for the rest of us? On the surface of Valoria, the answers to those questions did not matter. What mattered was that help had arrived. Sergeant Jake Mitchell led his team through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. The buildings were collapsed, the streets were cracked, and smoke still rose from fires that had burned for days. But among the destruction, there was also life. Survivors emerged from basements and shelters, blinking in the light, unable to believe that the nightmare was over. Over here, one of Jake's soldiers called out. We have civilians. Jake rushed over and found a group of Valorians huddled in a collapsed building. There were about 20 of them, mostly children and elderly. They looked up at the human soldiers with wide, frightened eyes. It is okay, Jake said softly, kneeling down to appear less threatening. We are here to help. We have food, water, medicine. You are safe now. A young Valorian child, no more than 4 or 5 years old by human standards, slowly approached Jake. Her silver skin was covered in dust, and her violet eyes were filled with uncertainty. She reached out a small hand and touched Jake's face, as if checking to see if he was real. You came, she whispered. Mother said no one would come. But you came. Jake felt his throat tighten. He had 2 daughters of his own back on Earth. He had never met this child before, had never even heard of her species until this mission. But in that moment, looking into those innocent eyes, he understood exactly why they had come. Of course we came, he said gently. That is what friends do. All across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers distributing supplies. Human doctors treating the wounded. Human engineers helping to rebuild critical infrastructure. They worked side by side with the Valorians, asking for nothing in return. High Priestess Ilara traveled to the largest refugee camp to see the relief efforts for herself. What she found there brought tears to her ancient eyes. Humans carrying Valorian children to medical tents. Humans sharing their own food with people they had never met. Humans working through exhaustion to help strangers from another world. Commander Daniel Hayes met her at the camp entrance. He bowed respectfully, a gesture he had learned from studying Valorian customs. High Priestess, on behalf of Earth, I am sorry we could not arrive sooner. Too many of your people have been lost. Solara reached out and took his hands in hers. Her touch was gentle, her skin smooth like polished stone. Commander Hayes, you have nothing to apologize for. You came when no one else would. You fought for us when we could not fight for ourselves. You saved millions of lives. She paused, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion. Why? We have nothing to offer you. We are not powerful or wealthy. Why did humanity risk so much for us? Daniel thought about Admiral Brooks and his 50-year promise. He thought about Chris Taylor and his photograph. He thought about Jake Mitchell and the little girl with dust on her face. Because a long time ago, humans learned what it feels like to face destruction alone. We know what it is like to look up at the sky and pray for someone, anyone, to help. We made a promise to ourselves that if we ever had the power to answer that prayer for someone else, we would. Today, we kept that promise. Solara smiled, the first smile she had worn in days. Then humanity is not what the galaxy believed. You are not primitive or weak. You are guardians, protectors, the kind of friends every species dreams of but few ever find. She turned to face the humans working in the camp. Today, I declare that Valoria and Earth are bonded in eternal friendship. What you have done for us will never be forgotten. When your children tell stories of this day, let them know that the Valorians will remember. Always. The words were broadcast across the planet and beyond. Soon, the entire galaxy heard them. 2 days later, Commander Hayes stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all of them staring at the human with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Commander Hayes, the council chairman, began. You have revealed that Earth possesses a military force far beyond what was reported in your official registrations. This is a serious violation of galactic law. How do you explain this deception? Before Daniel could answer, another voice spoke up. It was Admiral Kevin Brooks, appearing via holographic link from Earth. At 82 years old, he looked tired but unbowed. I will explain, the Admiral said. 50 years ago, I watched the Krath destroy the Miran homeworld. 12 billion people died. And this council did nothing. You debated. You discussed. You expressed concern. And while you talked, an entire civilization was erased from existence. The chamber fell silent. After that day, I realized something. The galaxy is full of predators. Species like the Krath, who take what they want and destroy what they cannot take. And the only thing that stops predators is strength. Real strength. The kind of strength that makes them think twice before attacking. Kevin Brooks straightened in his chair. So we built that strength. We built ships that could match any fleet in the galaxy. We developed weapons that could defeat any enemy. And we kept it hidden because we were not interested in conquest. We were not interested in power. We were interested in one thing only: being ready for the day when innocent people needed our help. He let his words sink in before continuing. You can condemn us for our secrecy. You can punish us for violating your laws. But you cannot deny one simple fact. While this council debated what to do about the Krath attack on Valoria, Earth acted. We saved millions of lives. We stopped a genocide. And we asked for nothing in return. The council chairman shifted uncomfortably. What are your intentions now, Admiral? Now that your secret is revealed, what does Earth plan to do with this fleet? Kevin Brooks smiled. The same thing we have always planned to do. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Defend the innocent. Stand up to bullies and tyrants." He paused. "But we will not do it alone. We are offering our protection to any species that wants it. Any world that faces destruction, any people that cry out for help, we will answer. That is our promise." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some species looked frightened. Others looked hopeful. A few looked relieved. Over the following weeks, dozens of species formally requested Earth's protection. The Valorians were first, followed by the Talani, the Marishi, and many others. Small worlds and weak civilizations that had lived in fear suddenly had a champion. The Krath Dominion officially surrendered and agreed to pay reparations to every world they had attacked. Warlord Zorvax was put on trial for his crimes. The galaxy was changing, and Earth was at the center of that change. Back on the USS Sentinel, Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the observation window, looking out at the stars. Captain Amy Carter joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "Quite a week," she said, handing him a cup. Daniel laughed softly. "That is an understatement. What happens now? Now that everyone knows about us?" Daniel took a sip of his coffee and thought about the question. For 50 years, Earth had hidden in the shadows. Now they stood in the spotlight. Everything was different. "Now we do what we always should have done," he finally said. "We take our place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as protectors. As friends. As the people who answer when someone cries for help." Amy nodded. "I can live with that." They stood together in comfortable silence. 2 humans looking out at a universe that had finally seen what humanity was made of. Somewhere out there, on a healing world called Valoria, a little girl with silver skin was telling her friends about the day the humans came. About the soldiers who brought food and medicine. About the commander who bowed to her high priestess. About the promise that Earth had made to the galaxy dot and in homes and ships across the stars. Other beings were learning the same lesson that the Krath had learned the hard way. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never dismiss the small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. Because when you threaten the innocent, when you hurt the helpless, when you think no one is watching and no one will come, you might just find yourself facing the wrath of Earth. And that is a lesson you only need to learn once.